Welcome to another episode of In Front of the Scenes. My name is Kevin from Cobra, and this is where I come out, of course, from behind the scenes to chat with clients. Right now, we have my dude Damien Mahoney from Caulbearers over in Manchester. They are a very, very eclectic group. He's got stuff with that going on, all kinds of solo projects and whatnot. So we're going to touch on all that first of all. So D, appreciate it, brother. And I will say that we are both kind of debuting stuff today because behind me, I bought these LED like kind of stage lights for this, and it's hard to tell because it's like midday here where I live, but like I got a little purple hue, and I'm hoping that this translates very well. And it has different colors I'd show you, but I'm afraid of breaking it. I mean, you control it with the phone. It's cool. So you got that, and you were just telling me before we started recording that you're sitting on a yoga ball. So is this like multitasking exercise, or what's the story there?
No, it's just Hi, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for the lovely introduction. I wanted to try it instead of a chair. I'm sick of sitting in chairs all the time. You know, when I'm working doing production. So I thought I'd try the yoga ball. It was pretty cheap, and so yeah, if I'm bouncing up and down at some point if I get really excited, my head disappear out of frame.
It's the perfect chair for you, and you're probably just going to have the strongest ass known to man after you're sitting in these things for a while too. If you're doing enough production
honestly, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good. It gives you you don't feel as tired or achy. You know, you can change your position quite easily. So yeah, I'm a big fan already.
Cool. I like it. All right, sir. So let's talk about Caulbearers, man. First of all, it's a big group. You usually have several people kind of in and out. Just where it's just you for now, give a shout out to everyone else who's currently in the band. Tell us about them.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, it's like you said, it's typically been a big band. You know, it started between 8 and 10 members. And it fluctuates, and there's people coming in and out, so it's got more of a collective feel at the moment. And so the permanent members, I'd say at the moment, are Anton Hunter is the guitarist who's been with us a long time. Not the actual original guitarist, but he's been there for over 10 years. Who's an amazing improviser and composer. The bass player, Clive, he joined us probably 18 months ago. He's a very established Manchester-based player in many different genres, because funk, reggae, Afrobeat. He's incredible. Also a filmmaker. Mark Pilkington, who's the keys and synth player at the moment. He's probably been there a similar amount of time, about 18 months. Stefan Skrimshire, who's a cellist who's been with us right from the beginning. And there's Gavin Mullan as a percussionist who's currently in Portugal. So we have different people coming into depth at the moment for studio projects. Howard Jacobs has been the drummer that we've used most recently, but he's off on tour at the moment with Beth Gibbons of Portishead. So he's working on her solo tour at the moment. Nice. And he's an amazing drummer, Howard. So yeah, we've been working with him for studio recordings. And then also we have Ruth Blake, who is an artist in her own right.
Of course, love Ruth.
Yeah, Ruth's amazing, and you know, she's a great songwriter and singer. And pretty much every song on the album that I'm completing at the moment, Ruth's also on there. Plus, she's putting her vocals on some of the newer stuff as well. So that's who's there at the moment.
Right.
But there's other people who do come in and out. You know, horns players and other percussionists as well.
That's cool. No, that's awesome. And shout out again to Ruthie, who at some point is going to do this herself, a little in front of the scenes interview. So I'm looking forward to connecting with her again. All right. Great. So you guys in Caulbearers, I mean, you've got your funk, you got your jazz, you got your soul, you got your world influences. I like this quote from Quenched music. If Grace Jones and Massive Attack were one being. I like that. So I guess where does all that come from, Damien? Like, who brings what to the band?
It's a really good question. It's definitely, I mean, so in the past, sometimes the songs were generally I write the songs, and usually they're coming from lyrics or a very fully realized idea that I have musically, or maybe it's a simpler, not fully realized idea. But it's usually coming from like the bare bones of a musical idea and lyrics. But sometimes songs have emerged from everybody collectively playing or out of jams, and then the lyrics or the direction of the song has been a response to those musical ideas that people have come up with in the moment. that tended to happen more when we're like more regularly gigging, whereas at the moment we're more studio focused. So it's more now that we're kind of realizing more songs that I've written, as opposed to them coming out of this collective, collaborative, approach. But everyone's always bringing something into it. You can't work with that many musicians without their style, their way of playing, and their influences coming to the table. So really, I'd say the music that we make is a combination of all of what those musicians put into it. In terms of the influences of the band, I would say it's completely wide, it's completely open. It just comes from a love of music. But if there was some, I guess, significant markers or key aspects, I'd say rhythmically, it's I grew up very, very influenced by dance music and very much influenced by electronic music. So sometimes, even though Caulbearers, all the music is played live, it's all live instruments, but sometimes the arrangements and the interaction of parts, for me, often is very influenced by electronic music. And we don't often sit with very traditional structures in terms of the songs, in terms of like verses and choruses. It's a little bit more maybe unusual sometimes in the structures than that. So maybe that pays more attention to dance, electronic music and dance music. But really, everything I write comes first from rhythm and the push and the pull and the groove that comes from. Basically, if you trace it back, it's all coming from music from Africa, really.
Wow.
Whether that's come via, Caribbean islands, and it's come from the, reggae, or it's come from through South America, or it's come through America. Really, it's generally rhythms that have been influenced, from the movement of human beings in that way. And I guess you could also say like Indian rhythms as well that travel from Southeast Asia. So even though we're sitting here in the north of England in Northern Europe, a lot of the music that I would absorb and the rhythmical thing that gets me going, even in terms of the lyrics that I write, and it all stems from an approach to drums. Even the vocal melodies really are coming from they're really drum beats, and initially everything stems from that.
Interesting. So I'm trying to frame this question properly in my head because I'm not quite sure how to ask it. Okay, so when it comes to the world influences and stuff like that, especially where you guys in large part, even kind of beyond music, you're very kind of spiritual and wellness focused and stuff like that. Does the music that you write come at all from a place of trying to, I guess, like you're bringing maybe transcribing is probably not the right word, but like the human condition and kind of how people operate around the world and what everyone's spirit is, are you trying to like even maybe unconsciously bring that into a sonic vibe when you write? Like, are you thinking like, how do we interpret how humans are into music? Or are you strictly just, that is just in your head, but you're bringing it just from a music perspective?
I think it's an interesting question. I'll try and answer it. If I don't answer it right,
that's all right. It was a weird one. That's all good, man.
I think that is happening, but it's kind of unconscious. I guess the drive is to make something because you feel compelled. You could feel compelled to share ideas, whether they're lyrical, whether they're musical. There's an urge and an impulse to share something that resonates within you. And hopefully that resonates with other people, but really it's what's resonating here. And then, is that resonating with the other people that you're making music with? And I think in terms of a relation to the human condition, I think one way it's kind of been referred to before with Caulbearers, I guess, is that there's a kind of there's a sort of a look internal, perspective. I guess you're kind of looking within to try and make sense of the human condition as you experience it as a human being, with all your difficulties and joys and failings and flaws and attributes, trying to make sense of that. So the attention and the learning that sometimes comes through trying to express lyrical ideas is trying to make sense of that. Looking within, but it's also very much like looking without. So looking to how that looks on a wider scale. How does that look in terms of society? How does that look in terms of community? And I guess the narrative of songs is often switching between the two in quite a dreamlike way. So it's very rare that I would write a song that is like a story that goes kind of from here to here to here. You know, the narrative perspective changes. It might be a perspective that I'm that kind of represents me in some way, and then the perspective might change from somebody else looking at me or down on me, or you know, or a wider perspective. I guess in a little bit like maybe you've got this idea that must have absorbed along the way of, like, you know, the sort of Greek, you know, the Greek chorus, you know, in sort of like Greek theatre. Then you'd have the protagonist, and then you'd have literally the chorus who would, you know, sing these ideas and concepts that might be looking from a different perspective, maybe like a higher plane, or maybe like a non-human perspective on the difficulties that the human being experiences. So I think it's quite nice to change narrative perspective. It's not a conscious thing. It's not something like trying to do. It's just the way the lyrics come out, and it's quite dreamlike, I think. You know, you know, dreams, narratives change, don't they, all the time? You know, perspectives. It's not fixed, is it? Everything's a bit more fluid.
So really, like, lyrically, it matches Caulbearers sonically, where your song structures and maybe time signatures and things are a little bit unconventional at times. Lyrically, there isn't just the one story, or if there is, there are multiple perspectives in the story. And you kind of, like, it's all just kind of like different things and really fitting the mood in an organized way. I guess maybe you can kind of say the approach to songwriting.
Exactly that. It's I guess you're just following your nose, aren't you? And there's no set way. It's like you get to a certain point and you think, okay, well, that's done, and then if you were to look back at that drawing or the map that's kind of been drawn, you'd be like, oh wow, that's a weird shape, but that's just kind of how it is, you know. And another song or another story or piece of music is going to work completely differently. It's like you're just trying to I guess honor and respect that idea as best as you can at the time that you've made it, and you kind of need to, I think, kind of like leave that well alone and not kind of question it too much. Do you know what I mean? From my perspective, you know what I mean?
Right. So you're not like listening back to old Caulbearer songs and thinking, what does that mean? You're not. You're just like, you were in the moment. You've moved on. You're all good.
I think.
Okay, cool.
Well, I'll tell you what I do find interesting is, like, I was reading the poet and musician Kay Tempest, based in the UK. They wrote a book. They've written a lot of books, but one that I was reading was this idea that when they were doing poetry readings and going on tour, doing these readings from the book they'd written, the meaning or deeper meanings from what had been written some time ago came to the fore and suddenly were realized in the interaction with the audience when these poems were being orated, you know. When and then there was like, oh, okay, right, there's another perspective and understanding coming from that. And I think it's the same with lyrics. Sometimes I'll look back at those lyrics or hear a song and go, wow, that resonates with me now in this way, and it might have not been intended in that way at the time. It almost feels like, I don't know how this is for other people, but I feel like if you follow your intuition and kind of, like, you know, respect it to write something, or, you know, some music, lyrics, however like daft it might seem or corny it might seem, but if that feels true to you, sometimes maybe that's actually telling you a story that you don't even fully know yet. Maybe years later that makes more sense to you.
Oh, 1,000%. Because even, I would imagine, even when you write a song, let alone listen to someone else's song, the meanings can even change over time. Like, that you can relate in a different way. Maybe a few years ago, you're going through something and it hits you one way. And then a few years later, you know, you're going through something else. It hits you another way. Like, it's kind of the beautiful thing about music is we can really interpret it in so many ways. And you know what, over time, like, it's different ways. It's like you're discovering almost, it's bringing out something else in you, that song, maybe years later, which I think rocks, honestly. That's really cool. So I'm with you 100% there.
I think you're exactly right, and it's what it keeps it alive, isn't it? This is, it's a living thing rather than something that was fixed in time and it happened and then you listen to it and then it's done. The whole process is alive and
Always relevant.
and moving.
Just always relevant. That's cool. Yeah. So, Damien, you talked about the electronic influences that you have personally, but Caulbearers is obviously a fully live act. Do you ever, when it comes to new music, or maybe just in the future in the back of your head, do you plan to incorporate any electronic elements, or even maybe like starting with the songwriting, it kind of would begin from there, but then translate to proper instruments live? What, if anything, is that influence going to bring later in Caulbearers?
That's a really good question. Well, specifically with Caulbearers, it'd never be fixed. So, yeah, I'd be very happy to kind of, for Caulbearers to take a more electronic direction.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me has just been that I guess I've been, when I've got the time, I'm delving into little electronic projects with other people outside of Caulbearers. So it's nice to kind of just go into some of those worlds separately, but there's no reason why they wouldn't meet. And whether it's like reworking of existing songs, remixing songs, which I've done bits of, but they've still usually kind of stayed with the stems of what was there in terms of the original parts, live instruments, and just been kind of like chopped and reworked. So there's definitely scope for doing that, and I'd be totally open for it. But at the moment, my where I feel more drawn to sort of making electronic music is in separate projects with people outside of the band.
That's fair. That's fair. We're actually going to get to more of that in a sec, but I want to talk quickly about the Caulbearers discography. So you had the More Lie Deep EP in 2011, and otherwise, singles like Burst Through the Borders and Overcomes the Cloud and whatnot. Was that a conscious decision to not do a proper album and just to kind of just hit people with singles, or was it just a matter of like finding the time, finding the inspiration?
Yeah, a mixture. It's a mixture of everything. It's so yes, it's so I'm basically finishing an album at the moment.
Oh, good. Okay.
This album project. Yeah. So that's what I'm in the studio. Well, I'm mainly finishing it at home. I mean, you can't see the equipment, but I'm in an attic studio here.
I see a mic stand. But I got you.
Oh, yeah, there's mics down there.
Right.
Soundproof. That's basically a live room behind there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so I'm in my little control space here, and then I'm tending to finish these tracks in a studio with elsewhere. Studio in Manchester. I get a second pair of ears. I work in a studio called Airtight in South Manchester. So I've probably got three more tracks to finish, 2.5 I'd say, to finish for that album. And that album will consist of some of the songs that you have mentioned. So things like Burst Through the Borders, Overcomes a Cloud, Twisted Chord, which is that other single that came within that time period. They will be on there, and then 7 more songs as well. So yeah, as a marketing strategy, it was a bit weird. It really wasn't really thought about. It was just during the pandemic. I felt like I needed to get those songs out. It felt really important to be able to like make videos, work with other artists, make videos on our own when there was no one else we could collaborate with, when it was like total lockdown, and just work on material and get it out there. And I guess since then, I'm back into a place of kind of doing events, doing lots and lots of different projects, and then just trying to find the time slowly to finish this album. Weirdly enough, but not that weird if you know me, I guess. Whilst finishing that first album, I've actually started work on the second album. So I'm about 3 or 4 songs into a second album, working in a different studio of new material. So I'm kind of doing the what someone joked about me the other day. They said you're still trying to sort out the difficult first album, and you've got into the second album instead. So that's where I find myself at the moment.
That's funny. Now I do want to say like singles are cool, like especially these days with streaming and whatnot. I think there are a lot of people that like there's value in just kind of regularly putting out singles. For me, I love just an album or an EP just to kind of sit and you're enjoying an act and all that. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, when you say you're working on the second album, so there's no chance of just like a longer Caulbearers album or perhaps a double. Like you were definitely gonna, okay, these are for the follow-up release, and I'm gonna hang on to these for a bit. Is it because like they're just so sonically different, or what's the thought there?
That's a really good question. So yeah, I think the first 10 songs that there's I don't know if they're all sonically different, but I think the first 10 songs that are going to be in this album, there is like an arc of a story to me. that kind of works on a wider perspective, but also works on a personal perspective. So that just kind of feels kind of boxed off. And, you know, there's the possibility it might change. We might get in the studio and then listen to them all together and go, actually, that needs to change, or that's not part of it. And you have to be open to that process. But for me, it feels like that's there. And then I guess the newer stuff that's being done, I don't know, it just feels... Yeah, it just feels a little bit more where I am. Yeah, it feels a bit different. It feels where I'm at the moment. It's definitely different in terms of the approach to the recording. A lot of the people involved in the music. You know, there's a lot of people who worked on the original recordings for the other tracks who aren't you know, have moved away from Manchester or in different places or in different bands. So it's a newer. It feels like it's in a newer phase with these newer recordings. So. And someone offered us some studio time. Someone offered us some, and I thought, do I not do that and just finish what we're doing? It seemed like a really good opportunity to get this current group of musicians together and get in the studio and see what happens. And we've been blessed with the location we got to do it. So I'm really glad we have, because the results are great so far.
Excellent. So just to touch on the singles too, and the vibe of the new music. Burst Through the Borders was very kind of chill compared to a lot of your more upbeat, funky stuff like Twisted Chord and all that. Are we getting more of that chill vibe on the new stuff, or is it pretty typically Caulbearers, funktastic, upbeat, you know, jammy type of deal? Or a little bit of both?
That's a really good question. I think there's a bit of everything in there, you know. Because Burst Through the Borders is, I mean, it's a 4-chord wonder, really, all the way through. It's quite an epic long song, but it's the same chords, even though it moves, you know, in lots of different directions. And I think so. Yeah, there's a song called Tension that we've just finished recording on, which I guess has a similar feel in terms of it's more upbeat, but it's there's a lot of words, a lot of lyrics, you know, a sort of quite a big story. So, and it's got an epic feel again, lots and lots of strings, lots and lots of layers. So I'd say that's maybe in a similar vein. But there's definitely, there's some older sounding songs. There's a song that sounds much more kind of like, maybe got like more 60s. It's got a bit of like a Motown feel, and it's really, really up tempo. So it's going to be a mix of everything, really.
Excellent. Okay, so looking forward to the first of 2 planned new Caulbearers albums this year. I'm assuming at least for the first one, hopefully. So, but we'll see there. And I know that, Damien, you've got a bunch of other projects going on, a lot of like guest work and production work and stuff like that. So, what else is doing?
So, production wise, I'd say the 2 main things I'm doing at the moment is I've got there's an EP to complete with Ruth Blake.
Okay, nice.
We mentioned before, has done some vocals with Caulbearers. I recorded and produced a single with her before called Brave Ships, and we've got 3 more tracks to do. So this is a really lovely opportunity, because we get to work with bringing in some musicians from Caulbearers, other musicians from Manchester. We've had musicians from Bristol, and she's, like I said before, she's a wonderful songwriter. So we're the songs that she's often written, I guess, would have felt more in like a kind of folk tradition, but really they're a lot more universal than that. So I kind of see part of my role in bringing in a wider group of musicians to bring more life into these songs and to take them in different directions stylistically, which is not a set genre. It's, you know, it's a mix of different feels again, but just trusting that process that hopefully, you know, we'll be able to do justice to the songs, while, you know, not losing the songs while we add all these extra layers. So doing that with Ruth, I'm working on quite a few electronic tracks in an yet unnamed project with a friend of mine called Dale. We're a duo doing a electronic music project which covers like house, techno, break beats, acid. It's just, you know.
You said it's a yet untitled project, right? You could do, like, if it's Dale, you could do like a D&D play of some sort, like Damien Dale, like a D&D, like either just your names or like, I don't know, like Dungeons and Dubstep. I don't know, something like that.
I've thought about, I've thought about some sort of play on our names, how that might work out. But there's a few place names around here that sound a bit like both our names put together. So I did wonder about that. But Yeah, so we're looking to hopefully get some of that. The first release is hopefully out later this year. So I'll let you know when we do have when that's complete. We have a name for that, and then I guess the other projects that I'm doing are probably more away from that. I'm more in this place where music meets health and well-being, really.
Okay, so are you kind of like, when you say that, like, are you creating almost mood or soundtrack type music, or is it just like health and well-being from the perspective of a musician, or something else entirely?
So that's a good question. So there's different aspects to, I guess, what I'm referring to. One thing is I do a lot of group voice events. So basically like singing events where we get, we might be in a room where some people are very, very experienced singers and some people might not have ever sung at all or publicly or have very little confidence. And really the ethos I'm coming from is one that's, I've been taught to facilitate with a network it's international, but it started in the UK called the Natural Voice Network. And really this idea is that, as human beings, we all have a unique voice and we all have the ability to sing. And often we, at some point in our lives, many of us get messages where we're either told to shut up, or we're told we don't have a good voice, or, we kind of get closed down, and then that stays with people a lot, and they feel very self-conscious about it. So the idea is really bringing people together as a group, as a community, to sing together songs in different traditions, songs from different parts of the world, songs in different languages, made up languages, so many different approaches. The beauty of it is, one for me is that if you're spending lots of time doing production, sat in front of computers, this is the perfect antidote, because it's you in your body singing with other human beings. There's a whole amazing body of research that's growing and growing, that's coming out now, that's emerging around the benefits of singing, in groups with other people. And there's attunement that goes on. There's huge amounts of serotonin that's increased. There's endorphins that are released. People's stress levels go down. People's ability to trust other people in the space, when that's been measured, is increased, as if people have had much more deeper and longer relationships with each other, even though they've just been singing for a short space of time. So to me it's like a big win. And in a society where often people are getting quite separated and polarized, it's a very simple and effective way of bringing people together. So I'm quite passionate. Well, I'm very passionate about doing this kind of work, and it could be anything from working with refugees to cancer patients, prison inmates, but I also do like general, open to the public events, or collaborations with other practitioners, yoga practitioners, dance practitioners, so some of my kind of personal work around this is kind of delving deeper into continued personal practice around vocal improvisation, and learning off some amazing teachers in the UK and beyond, to learn how we can deepen this practice and make it even more in the moment.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And what I love about that, Dee, is that I think singing brings people together well in that regard, because we all love to do it. Like, we all sing in the car, we all sing in the shower or whatever, but so many of us are not like you with vocal talent. We just can't. but when you get people together and you're all trying something new, and you're kind of putting yourself out there, and then you kind of accomplish that with people in the same boat as you, I'd imagine that's a cool feeling for everyone who does those, to feel really like liberated, and just like you took a chance, and it's music. Everybody loves music, man. Music. It helps and heals, as you know very well. So that's awesome. That's unbelievable work, and I wish you nothing but luck with that. So of course, Dee has all kinds of stuff going on there with production, with music, and with wellness and all that. Caulbearers, new music coming, 1 and eventually 2 albums. You can go to Caulbearers.com. So that's CAUL Bears. It's like pallbearers.com. It has everything on the group. Very fun, very eclectic. Damien, listen, man, thank you very much for taking time out to chat with me. It was nice to catch up. It's been a bit. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's really good to see you, and it's lovely to chat. Stand here naked.
Sometimes it might feel too much.